Hi, I'm Dan Fazio with GI Jobs. Welcome to our Success After Service series. Today we're talking with Shannon Kelly, who is a former Navy pilot who transitioned into a career in sales and healthcare. Welcome, Shannon.
Thanks, Dan. Glad to be here.
So let's start with your Navy career. I mean, your dad was in the Army when you were growing up, right?
That's
Why did
right.
you choose the Navy, and what attracted you to aviation?
I chose the Navy because the Army initially rejected me. So
Oh,
I applied to West Point, and
why?
it's a
Why, if I may
story
ask?
of perseverance. I'll never know.
Oh,
My
was love
dad
and
wanted to get
destiny.
involved, and I wanted to do it on my own. And I think they just didn't think I was a strong candidate, and the Naval Academy disagreed. So that's why I picked Navy. I actually grew up wanting to join the Army. And then the Navy ended up making more sense for me anyway, just wanting to be a pilot. I think there's more opportunities there. So I think my dad probably brainwashed me a little bit as far as aviation goes. He took me to a lot of air shows when I was growing up. I took a helicopter ride with my uncle when I was probably about 10, and I kind of got sold just on the adventure in the sense of doing something that put me in the skies. So
Yeah. Well, Army's lost, Navy's gained, right?
that's right. Yeah, I keep the rejection letter framed in my office.
Oh, that's
And I
awesome.
have for the last, they sent it to me in 1996. So, it's a nice thing for me to reflect on that, sometimes failure is a blessing and you
Yeah,
can overcome that.
so true.
Yeah.
So you flew C-130s, is
I
that right?
initially flew EP3s in the Navy in my active duty time. So a reconnaissance version of the P3, which actually they just retired the last EP3 this past October. And so I did that for my first fleet tour, flying all over Europe, the Northern Arabian Gulf, overland Iraq, and also overland South America. And then
Okay.
after that, I did a shore tour with VX-30 in Point Mugu, California, which is a test squadron. And there I also flew a version of the P3, but I also got qualified in the C-130, and I learned how to fly the C-130 on the A-frame, the very first model that was born by Lockheed Martin. And I flew a plane that was made in 1957. So
Oh,
it was
wow.
a pretty old aircraft. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So, all right, so you served 8 years active duty.
Yeah, about 8.5.
Okay. And then you transitioned into the reserve, correct?
That's right. Yep. I went to a C-130 Reserve Squadron out of Willow Grove, Pennsylvania.
Huh.
And that Naval Air Station has since been decommissioned, and the squadron moved to New Jersey. And then when that happened is when I transitioned out of the reserve. So I flew there for about 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you decided to leave the Navy, full-time active duty to pursue a civilian career, what was your plan? I mean, what inspired you to pursue a career in healthcare sales of all things?
It's funny. I thought about going to medical school. A lot of my peers, after they do their active duty time, they want something really challenging. So a lot of them were seeking out medical school. So I actually took prerequisites. I retook chemistry, retook biology with the intent of maybe going to medical school. And then I had a dream one night that, sorry, my cold is getting to me. I had a dream one night that that shouldn't be the case. And I just woke up and I was like, I don't think I'm supposed to be doing that. I think there's something else out there. And at the same time, I was also exploring opportunities with headhunters that were recruiting junior military officers. And they had suggested sales in the healthcare space. So I did a ride along with a sales rep for the company that eventually hired me. And I got the opportunity to go into a facial reconstructive surgery that was about 12 hours long. And it was super fascinating. I'm just in the OR observing, not doing anything. I was completely fascinated by it. And so I figured, hey, I'm going to give it a shot. And if it doesn't work out, I could always go pursue the medical school thing or, go back to flying. So it just ended
Yeah.
up working out for me.
Wow. That's really interesting. Um, yeah, I can imagine being in an OR watching. That
I
would be
mean, it was amazing. Yeah. The surgery involved removing a tumor in this man. He's around 50 years old, his mandible. I mean, essentially, saving his quality of life, for many years moving forward. And it was just completely amazing. They used multiple surgeons to do this reconstruction. So I got to watch all phases of that, and just science and technology is really what captured me, I think.
wow. So, what surprised you most about the civilian workforce?
No, well, it's I don't know. That's a great question. I think probably the way people communicate is a lot different than in the military, but probably didn't really realize that going into the Naval Academy at the age of 18. You don't have fully developed communication skills, especially with people outside your bubble, right? Outside of school, outside of sports. That's all you really know. And then, so you go right into the military, and then for the next decade of your life, you have one way of communicating. It's very direct. And there's a reason for that, right? There's not a lot of time to dance around issues, and you really need to get your point across in a succinct way. So when I made that transition, I realized not everybody appreciates that way of communication. Not everybody likes to hear things direct. And so that was probably the toughest lesson for me. Just taking a couple years, I called it de-roboting myself because the way your brain works and it functions and it's the way it's used to processing things. I had to learn how to allow more room for the way other people receive information. So that's probably the biggest challenge and surprise for me that I wasn't prepared for. Did I lose you? Okay.
Yeah, you froze for just a second, but that's okay.
Okay.
Modern technology.
Yeah.
So, how did your experience as a Navy pilot prepare you for the corporate world, especially the challenges of the corporate world?
I think being a Navy pilot, you need to be able to have confidence in what you're doing. And so I think, especially when I transitioned, you have this feeling like, I don't know what I'm doing. But you can instill confidence in yourself and present with confidence to other people. And that helps you build relationships. Because if you believe in what you're doing, then other people are going to trust you more. And, that's the basis of all relationships is trust. So, I mean, there are many skills I used as a Navy pilot, multitasking, being disciplined, and then just being, self-aware. I think, when I ran my crew in the Navy, I'm taking care of people. I'm a leader. I'm responsible for their lives every day. So I need to be really self-aware and understand how my actions might affect others. And I think that's really allowed me to get me where I am today, and just have that emotional intelligence. And maybe you don't think you have that when you're in the military, but when you get out into the civilian world, there's quite a bit of focus on the importance of EQ. So I felt like I was prepared for that.
Can you share a mistake you made during your transition and how you learned from it?
Yes, yeah. I think the communication piece, I made a lot of those mistakes, kind of just saying what was on my mind. And then, it creates anxiety in relationships. And so there are certainly a couple times with my peers where I would get really frustrated because I felt like they weren't hearing what I had to say, and I wasn't saying it in a way that they were ready to hear it. Fortunately, I had a really good boss, my first boss out of the military, who never took anything very seriously. So he gave me the room to make those mistakes, and eventually we worked them out. And actually, I'm still friends with those people today. Like, even though I've moved within the company and moved around, and I still talk to them. And actually, we look back and we laugh on how goofy I was. So people are
That's
very
awesome.
forgiving. Yeah.
Yeah. So today you're a orthopedic account director for Johnson and Johnson. What is that, and what's a typical day look like for you?
Yeah, great question. So I pretty much manage all the contracting within J&J MedTech companies within a certain area of the country. So recently I was assigned Oregon, Washington, and Northern California. And we have some strategic partnerships with large hospital IDNs and facilities that we contract with in different parts of our businesses in the franchise of J&J MedTech. So I basically interface with them. We negotiate contracts, we negotiate pricing, we negotiate terms. And so I am what we consider in the field as customer facing. There are sales reps that call on those facilities and hospitals. There are regional managers. There are area vice presidents, and I work with them to strategically come up with a plan to meet the needs of the customer and the business.
Okay. Do you work entirely from home, or is this a?
I do now work entirely from home, but then I'm also in the field, sometimes meeting with those customers face to face.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How does your role with Johnson and Johnson provide you with that sense of purpose that you mentioned was missing during your transition, or you were concerned about finding that purpose?
Yeah, great question. I think, just the ultimate mission of J&J and putting the patients first, it makes the mission very clear to see. We have a mission statement at J&J. We call it the Credo, and it specifically lays out what our priorities are in a very easy way, no matter what your job is in the company. So we put our patients first, we put the people that treat the patients next, etc. And so whenever there's a question of why am I here, what am I doing, or maybe I'm in a mundane meeting, or maybe I'm not having a great day, that Credo always, you just remind yourself of that Credo and why you're there, and that's your purpose. And ultimately, it's helping people get better who are sick. It's helping people heal faster that are injured. It's helping, pandemics and epidemics across the world. So you're seeing the impact not only in your piece of the pie, but globally. I think I mentioned in my notes that I supported a global effort this past year with a startup in Kenya. And so J&J has a lot of projects out there for people who want to help beyond their current role. And so I got to spend 6 months. I met with this startup company that owns 14 clinics in Nairobi. I met with them weekly to develop a pricing strategy, ultimately delivering a pricing engine for them to use and accommodate their needs in the future. And I got to travel to Kenya to do it. So just doing something like that also really instills in me my sense of purpose and just my level of service, which is really important to me. And then I also help out on our employee resource group called the Veteran Leadership Council, where I serve as the corporate liaison for the Travis Manion Foundation, which is a veteran service organization. And so I do that at work, but I also co-lead a chapter locally where I spend a lot of my personal time supporting that organization as well. So, and my company is very supportive of that. So that's what also helps me feel like I have a purpose.
Excellent. So you also in your notes emphasize the importance of finding the right fit. What advice do you have for transitioning service members who feel pressured to take the first job offer they get?
Yeah, I think that's really important. I know not everybody has the luxury of waiting for the right opportunity, but I encourage people to do that as best they can. I think really for me, my manager or whoever your boss is going to be, it's really important that you have a good, transparent relationship with that person. I would also recommend people just follow their gut. Before I got this job, I had a couple job offers in spaces that I wasn't passionate about. I mean, yeah, they offered me a decent salary and it was a good job, but I just couldn't visualize myself doing that job every day. And so I would encourage people just to take a step back and think about, is that what I want my day-to-day to be? And, does this feel right? And ultimately, for me, it comes down to the people as well. When you interact with the people in your interview process, do you feel a connection there? Do you feel shared values? Do you feel it's a mutually beneficial relationship?
Really good advice. How would you encourage veterans to overcome the fear of networking or engaging with higher ranking colleagues in a civilian setting?
Yeah, that's also a great question. I think when you come from the military, you're so stuck on the chain of command that you're kind of afraid to initially you get a little bit shy about maybe talking to someone who you perceive as higher ranking than you in the civilian world. And although there is structure and hierarchy in most companies, they are not as rigid as the military. So I would encourage people to kind of put that aside and just think of whoever it is that you're trying to network as another person. And also that person has if they don't want to network, they're going to tell you, hey, I don't have time, or they're not going to respond. And that's okay. Right. So I would just say, put yourself out there. Don't worry about the chain of command. I think most people from the military are not really shy by nature. Most of us are pretty gregarious, and we've been around the world. We know how to talk to anybody. So just be yourself, and when you do talk to somebody that you perceive as being higher ranking than you, be mindful of their time, have a plan. If they're going to give you 30 minutes, make sure that you have a plan of what that 30 minutes is going to look like. Plan it out in your head. Say, the first 10 minutes, I'm going to give them my background. I'm going to ask them their background. The next 10 minutes of that conversation, I'm going to ask 3 questions. And then, the next 10 minutes, I'm just going to let it flow. And that way there's some structure, and you're not just, it's not awkward silence, and the other person doesn't feel like their time is wasted.
That's also really good advice. Yeah, thank
I
you.
heard that one from another veteran, actually, who mentored me in J&J, and I got the opportunity to meet with the J&J CEO actually a month before the pandemic started, and I was like panicking. I was like, what do I say? He invited me for this meeting. I don't know what to say. And he's like, you got to structure it, and then you go in there with confidence, right? So it was a very productive meeting, and it was a great learning experience for me. And I felt confident walking in there because I had a plan. So
that sounds like a whole article on its own. Thank you for that. That's great.
Absolutely.
You talked about the Veteran Leadership Council at JFA and the Travis Manion Foundation. How have these rules shaped your professional and personal growth? I mean, you talked a little bit about that, but it helps you with your purpose in your civilian career. But I mean, talk about your personal growth with that.
Yeah, I think that TMF specifically has really allowed me to be more vulnerable. I think many of us that transition from the military, we have a lot of walls up. We're very protective, for a very good reason. Maybe we've been through some trauma, and we don't want to share our personal life with people at work, or we don't want to talk about certain things. And so we just sort of, maybe we're more closed emotionally. At least I was. Again, that was part of the de-roboting process. So the Travis Manion Foundation, they did a lot of things for me, but I attended one of their very first Spartan Leadership Program, which was a 9-month leadership program. Happened unfortunately during the first year of the pandemic, so we ended up doing it online. But I was in a cohort with 20 or so people who were just like me, transitioning veterans that had their, different struggles, and we learned how to lean on each other and really open up. And so also I would say we did that in the service of others with a purpose, right? We didn't just get in a group and talk about our problems and then leave. We took all that energy and we put it into service projects. We put it into mentoring youth. We put it into, leading others. through that process. And so we continue that today. That was, 4 or 5 years ago. So I really feel like that helps me kind of lower my defenses, and how that affects me at work is that it allows me to be more vulnerable as a leader. And more transparent, right? I'm more willing to share things about my personal life that other people can relate to, just even, my friends and family information, stuff like that. So it's quite beneficial.
So you're serving others, but you're also being served. It's helping you as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic.
I always tell people, like, when I mentor them, they say, well, thank you so much for helping me. And I'm like, don't worry about it. Do it for somebody else. Just pass it along, And if we all do that, we create this really great culture where we're all just helping each other and we're all on the same team and there's no competition. Where in the military, it definitely feels very competitive. People are always trying to get ahead. You're trying to get a higher rank. You're trying to get the job that you want. And those things are all really important too, but it's not like that at J&J. It's a team effort. We want to support each other. We want everybody to succeed and we want to lift each other up.
Sounds like a great place to work.
Yeah, I love it.
Fantastic. You also love skiing and mountain biking and the outdoors. How do these what drives your passion for that, and then how do these activities complement your professional life?
Ooh, I know probably adrenaline drives those activities. I think also just being outside. I love being outside. That's what feeds my brain. That's what feeds my soul. And then also staying fit and healthy is important to me. So it's also mental therapy. So I mean, just all of those things allow me to be a better person. And when I'm a better person, I'm a better employee, I'm a better leader, I'm a better team player, I'm a better coworker. I think that those activities specifically may not help me in my job when I'm talking to customers because I'm just a person on a screen or I'm a person in a meeting. But it fuels my brain. And again, it drives me to be a better person. I also think that the activities I choose to do are very challenging for me. Some of those things, like I'm always pushing myself to do, be a better skier or be a better mountain biker, or I ran marathons for a while. I was always pushing myself to do better, right? And so when you do that, you're also developing yourself as a person. You're working through challenges and you're growing. And so I think that's really important just as a human to, get up every day and be 1% better.
Really, really good. This has been a great conversation, Shannon. Is there anything else that you would like to add that we haven't talked about, that we didn't cover and you wanted to talk about?
No, I mean, those were all really good questions. I really appreciate those. And it's fun to talk about my transition now. I mean, it probably wasn't so fun when I was doing it, but I would encourage anybody to, be patient and be positive and, and just, do the best you can and be a good person. And I think, you really can't fail if you're being a good person.
Yeah, really great advice again. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experiences and insights with our audience. I'm sure there's going to be a lot that they can learn. And thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan. Have a good one.
You too.